Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Boykinen. I am here in beautiful Boulder Creek, California, where the flannel shirt is our state flag, the pit bull is our state bird, and cannabis is our state flower. I am joined this morning for what I hope to be a regular series of morning shows. We'll figure that out along the way. By my good friend Jason Carney. Jason, how's it going?
It's going. It's going. How are you?
I am fucking I actually I gotta admit I'm riding a little bit high off of a fucking tremendous interview yesterday with Whitney Webb. She brought the fucking fire. She gave the Slow News Day audience a sneak peek at an article that she hasn't even written yet that won't be published until Friday. It's the second part of her groundbreaking Epstein series. It connects the dots from the National Crime Syndicate, the Genovese crime family, and Meyer Lansky, and the Jewish crime syndicate, all the way up to Jeffrey Epstein. Names Roy Cohn as one of the linchpins of this sex trafficking of children for sport and blackmail. Roy Cohn, mentor to Donald Trump, great friend of the Reagan family, was the reason that Nancy Reagan actually admitted AIDS existed. Fascinating shit. Fascinating shit. How about you? How you doing?
Work.
I know that.
A little bit more work on top of that.
I do. You had a requiem.
I'm excited. I'm excited about that. That's fantastic. I can't wait to see what she puts out. And yeah, I'm big fan. Yeah. So I've been working religiously, if you will, and I'm an atheist. Wrap your head around that one. And some news came out that I wasn't aware of. And apparently Monday, former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens, an icon hero to me, if you will, got me interested in law. As we discussed earlier, I cite his dissent, 90-page dissent on DC versus Heller whenever it comes to gun control debate. And I think it's one of the greatest pieces of legal writing that's ever existed in this country's history. But apparently on Monday he had a stroke and passed away, I believe on the 16th, so 3 days ago. And as I was saying to you, I think I'm more depressed about this than I was for my own father's death. Take that however you will, audience. I kind of want to touch on this real quick because this is something that it's kind of like being a fan of a niche genre, loving the Supreme Court and loving law like I do. I literally feel alone in this pursuit, and my sadness is probably a very small part of the population. Anybody pays attention to the Supreme Court this much, but Stevens was a Republican. He was nominated and confirmed to the bench by a vote of 98-0 under President Ford, and I believe it was 1975 when this all occurred. And his name has been attached to so many of the huge cases that have happened since that point. Bush versus Gore, Citizens United, DC versus Heller. As I said, there's a lot of his judicial prudence that has shaped this country's history. And he started off as a quote unquote centrist. The man's always been interested in being a judge, not a political hack. And he was nominated by Ford with the assumption that he would be following in the Republican mold. He destroyed that. Hampton versus Mao Sun Wong, job discrimination ruling that he did. Gregg versus Georgia, which helped bring back the death penalty in 76. That was when, in a way, he went Republican. But then he started, as I said, going more liberal and became one of the most, if not the most liberal voice on the Supreme Court before leaving the court. I can't begin to express how depressing this is because he came from an era in which, I mean, it was transitioning from the most liberal court that gave some of the most progressive rulings, the Warren Court. He served in the time of Hugo Black, William Brennan, Thurgood Marshall. I mean, these are like monolithic names in the Supreme Court. And I just want everybody to take a minute. I'm a Marxist. I have no love for the Republicans, Democrats, or the American political system as is. I do love law. And what law is supposed to be is you take out your own individual biases. You take away your own personal prejudices, you take away everything from it, and you are supposed to rule and advocate for and what have you based off the law to do the right thing. And I can't think of a Supreme Court justice outside of Ruth Bader Ginsburg who's done it better. And I just wanted to kind of touch on that this morning. It got some press, obviously, but it's not to my satisfaction. And I just wanted the audience to know that a huge, huge figure in American law who didn't try to shape it from the bench, he didn't try to interject with his political beliefs. He did the right thing. And he was a hell of a Supreme Court justice. And I think more Americans should be aware of his legacy and his work on from the bench. So there's that. That's all I got for you.
All right. Well, we can kind of move straight from that into what are the woes of Robert Mueller.
I figure it's a good segue.
And rest in power, Justice Stevens. Need to pull up that article real quick. So Robert Mueller was scheduled to testify in front of Congress, I believe, this week. And before he could do that, he had to go in front of Judge Dabney Friedrich. And Friedrich is a Trump appointed justice. And let's back up here real quick and remember that Donald Trump has done more to radicalize and solidify a permanent right-wing presence on the federal judiciary than any modern president. With the help of Chuck Schumer. The Senate Democrats voted unanimously to fast track, I think, up to 39 out of the 72 judges Trump has appointed. And they fast tracked these judges so they could go home and campaign and tell you that they're resisting Trump. So they fast track his judges to lifetime appointees, these fucking far right motherfuckers. And then they wonder. And then they wonder why shit blows up in their face. So Mueller and his team asked for a delay. And Judge Dabney Friedrich says no. What he also did was he censured Mueller and said, you have got to stop peddling this fiction that the Internet Research Agency was responsible for stealing the 2016 election, which is central to his Russiagate case, his thesis, his fucking incredible work of fiction that Julian Assange personally orchestrated the downfall of the Democratic Party with the help of the Russian government through WikiLeaks. That shot to shit. He can't fucking, if he goes in there and purges himself, it will get reported on and it will have consequences. So we do have that to look forward to. I am supremely glad, regardless of whether or not this judge was appointed by Trump, that somebody told Robert Mueller, dude, you've got to stop lying about this. It already blew up in your face. It blew up in your face publicly multiple times. You cannot carry on this fiction anymore.
Let me start with an opinion and let me work my way into facts. When it comes to this entire deal, I firmly believe that the Mueller case is in two parts. One, to preserve the Democrat Party, and two, to take off the, how do I phrase this? To take off the responsibility of Trump being elected from the American people. I say that because at the end of the day, the Democrat Party put out this information amongst themselves. They had these discussions amongst themselves. They had this intent amongst themselves. And what Julian Assange and WikiLeaks did, and whoever got the information, what this did was show the American people the thoughts and feelings of the higher ups at the Democrat Party on elections, on the will of the people, and how they should run their organization. They got exposed. These weren't, no one is arguing that the emails were lies or works of fiction or created in some way to smear the Democrat Party. No one is arguing the facts of the emails. And I find that greatly disturbing. We're having an argument. We should have an argument about cyber infrastructure and cybersecurity in this country and ways to enhance election securities. We should. That no one is arguing that. No one is saying that is a stupid argument. What we're not arguing is that a party wanted to hijack the will of their constituents and their electorate to put in who they wanted. Now, it's been a dirty little secret throughout Washington since the dawn of this country that a bunch of people go into a back room, it's cigar smoke, and they decide who's going to be the nominee for president and who's going to be in this position, that position, etc. We're not playing ignorant here. We don't think from some naive area that, this is the will of the people when Senator Obama got elected or former Governor George Bush got elected, etc. We know that people are behind the scenes, but what Julian Assange and WikiLeaks did was expose this. And the worst part is that the nominee that they wanted was rapidly losing ground to Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont. And it directly flew in the face of what the Democrats were championing in the early 2000s under the Bush administration about transparency, about the will of the people being heard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No one's having that discussion. Now, people are going to interpret our conversation, Steve, as being pro-Trump, pro-Republican, however you want. If you're that simple-minded and you have the intellectual IQ of, I don't know, my shoe, you may interpret it as that. But people aren't having the conversation that the two major political parties in this country are going out and establishing already who they want to continue the status quo. And that any point where an insurgent campaign could come in and actually exercise and carry out the will of the people will be squashed. Why the mainstream media isn't having that conversation, why people aren't having that conversation as opposed to Russian meddling. And yes, meddling by any foreign power in our elections is fucking insane, and we need to get on it. We need to get on cyber infrastructure in this country and security. No argument. But people aren't having the real argument and the real discussion of, yeah, hey, I wanted Bernie Sanders, but apparently, no matter what I did, and no matter how many people I got to the voting booth, and no matter how many people I turned out for the rallies, that's not going to happen because that's not the decision of a couple of people in Washington, D.C.
Well, when their defense in court is there's no such thing as a Democrat. The DNC is a private organization that, if we fucking want to, can choose our candidates in a back room, but we go through this process because it helps us facilitate cash to lower candidates. You are left with nothing but the realization that this is an illegitimate process ran by a corrupt and craven organization who cynically doesn't even have to win. They just have to stop a populist, a legitimate left populist, from gaining power, and then play the resistance and capitalize off of that. This whole thing that we're seeing with a squad versus Nancy Pelosi versus Donald Trump, it's fucking bullshit fundraising during an election year. And if you think that there's anything other that, yes, there's a battle for internal power going on, but there's not the battle for the soul of the fucking country. That's just patronizing. It really is. And
there is, Steve, though. There is a battle for this country, but it's not being waged in Washington, D.C. It's being waged on our broadcast and Whitney's articles and others who go on YouTube and who speak out and who try to expose the system for what it is. There is a battle for the soul, but it has nothing to do with anybody in Washington, D.C.
Dude, the
out here.
president is a TV game show host. He's not the first president that was a legitimate actor before fucking having a career in politics. If that doesn't scream something at you, like I fucking I I was doing research on the Epstein thing, and I have a couple videos up that are some pretty deep dives, and not just the one that Whitney did yesterday, but some other ones. And I was looking into Alan Dershowitz, because Alan Dershowitz is a key figure in this. So is Larry Summers, former fucking
wasn't he Acosta's attorney?
Yeah,
The dude's attorney who was against Acosta.
Yeah.
Okay. Defense attorney. There we go.
At any rate, oh, so I'm looking up Dershowitz like in Google, and I have a screenshot of this, and I'm scrolling down to look for different articles, and I see Google's, their images pop up, and it says actors who were also lawyers, and right smack dab in the middle is Barack Obama. And I'm like, they're just gonna let it out like that? Like, fucking, really? All right, cool. But nobody's gonna pick up on that shit. Like, if you make it to the office of president, and I fucking, again, Elizabeth Beck, who was one of the lawyers in that DNC fraud lawsuit, said you run for president for one of two reasons: to get murdered or to work for the fucking system. And the only one out there that I see that's really actively trying to get murdered is Tulsi Gabbard. She's taking pictures with an Action for Assange wristband on now.
Right.
Like, and that's Andrew and Taylor that are hosting the Free Assange Vigil series now. That's their shit. That's their gear. Like, that's two people that just fucking started decentralized activism in their own communities not that long ago, and they got to the point where a fucking Action for Assange wristband made a presidential candidate's arm. Now, I don't know if Tulsi Gabbard is out there trying to get murdered, but what she's putting forth more often than not suggests that she's not running to work within the system. And that's not an endorsement for Tulsi Gabbard. But I did want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not endorsing anybody.
You were breaking up badly, my friend.
Really? Am I breaking up badly to the audience?
I don't know. From my end, you're breaking up. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping it's clear and concise on that end for the audience.
Here, you talk for a minute.
I don't disagree with you. I don't think in her case that she's trying to get murdered. I think she's one of the rare few people in this world that have a political position that actually is carrying through with what she says that she believes in. The only other person I could think of in our history, our nation's history, was FDR when it came to fighting against the status quo and the system as is. Now, he wasn't a liberal activist. He wasn't a progressive in the sense that we all think of. But FDR was taking on some heavily entrenched interests, corporate interests especially. And for him to be able to push through the legislation at that time that he did, the New Deal, that flew in the face of everybody who was in power at that time. And I can't think of a politician before or after that was able to look at the entrenched interest and say, fuck you, I'm going to do what I want, and I'll figure out a way to do it no matter what. In fact, at one point, he wanted to increase the Supreme Court by, I believe, 5 justices so that he could pack them with people who would go with the New Deal, as opposed to sticking with corporate interest at the time. Luckily, he didn't have to. But that is one of those things where he had a vision, he had a belief that would help the American people, and he wanted to execute it by any means necessary. And I believe she is the same way. I don't think she cares what fellow Democrats think. She already proved that by removing herself from the DNC during the Bernie Sanders fiasco in 2016. I think her talking to Assad was a brilliant move. And I think it was something that people who haven't served in the military, people who haven't given an ounce back to this country, can say, "Oh, we need to go bomb Syria." I said Assyria. Jesus Christ, we need to bomb Syria. We need to get up in Aleppo. We need to get up in. We need to get up. Oh, just we need to crawl in. We need 1,000,000 soldiers there. We need to be there for 100 years until everything that. With
And
no
as soon as we're done with
comprehension
the
of
Assyrians,
what.
we're going after the Hittites. And as soon as we're done with the Hittites, we're going, to the mass. We're going all the way to Macedonia.
Right. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, people who are so stupid, not ignorant, so stupid, who have a Call of Duty mentality of the world, think that, oh, we need to bomb them. She went ahead and said, you know what, fuck off. I've seen this with my own eyes, the entirety of war. And she went out and she spoke. And she was demonized by the Democrat Party for this. So I don't think Tulsi gives a rat's ass what Democrats think. I think she has a vision. She has a belief that's going to help the American people. And I have a hard time saying this because I don't trust anybody who's a politician. But I believe, this is me saying I believe. So when this is brought back, a year from now and somebody tries to hit me with this, I believe that she is the only candidate that has the best interest of every American at heart, not just on foreign policy, but domestic policy and everything else. Now, am I jumping on the Tulsi bandwagon? No, I've said that I'm Sanders and Tulsi. Those are my two. We'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, I don't think she's trying to get murdered. I think she's honestly trying to execute on what she promises people.
Well, I mean, sure, but that's not your interpretation of events and the way that events play out, in terms of how people who are way above both of our pay grades decide them to are not always going to line up. And I think that when I say like she's the only one acting like she wants to get murdered, what I mean by that is, she said Edward Snowden's name out loud. She said Julian Assange's name out loud. She said Chelsea Manning's name out loud. She flat out said, "But why do you think all the candidates are cussing now?" I mean, this is like 3-4 months ago where Tulsi Gabbard's all, "Fuck that shit." She posts it and it goes immediately viral. And then now Cory Booker gets to be like, "Kamala Harris doesn't know you shit. She doesn't. I'll take another check from the pharmaceutical industry, please. But Kamala Harris, she's a fucking badass." Like, he gets to say that. Bernie Sanders gets to say at a fucking on camera, at least in a Washington Post forum or whatever, sponsored by Bank of America, that he said the word shit in 1972 or something like that, I don't think that anyone who has to play the game to the degree that they say Joe Biden isn't a racist, or the way to a sustainable and prosperous future is through the Democratic Party, it is. I think if they're going to be that disingenuous on something as fundamentally clear as Joe Biden is a racist and the Democratic Party is where progressivism goes to die.
Dennis Kucinich.
Yeah, he sealed the deal on single payer not being an option. He's now on the Council on Foreign Relations. He fucking walked back a few things when he was running for governor of Ohio. Here's
the thing, though. I'm backing up your assertion that the Democrat Party is where progressivism goes to die. Because if you look at his now as a representative, look at his record. Look what he introduced. Look what he fought for while he was a representative. And he never moved the needle an inch toward the left during his entire time in the House of Representatives. If you need further proof that the Democrat Party is where progressivism goes to die, then Dennis Kucinich, Google that.
Oh, well, and I mean, they shoved Cynthia McKinney out. And then when she ran as a Green, while they were shoving her out, that's when she got together and riled up Ron Paul, Dennis Kucinich, and fucking a couple other people to go shake the fucking cage on 9/11. Um, but after that, Ron Paul backed off of 9/11. Dennis Kucinich backed off of 9/11. They still had careers until they wanted to not have careers. And Cynthia McKinney gets to run as a Green Party president and then become disillusioned with them and then go speak at Anarchapulco, which is fucking awesome. Fucking Cynthia McKinney, like hanging out with a bunch of fucking alt-right wing nuts. Like that's it's an incredibly hilarious picture to me.
It's a horseshoe theory that and I've destroyed this when people try to push the horseshoe theory that we should align ourselves with fucking fascists because we both agree that the Republicans and Democrats are nonsense. That's bullshit. And unfortunately, she went that route.
Briefly, and then now is not. She's like, fuck, I don't know. I'm gonna teach in India. Fuck you guys. I'm out of here. Like,
right. But that at the end of the day, that kind of hurts what we're trying to push, because I know within the Marxist community, we were the ones originally pissed off with that horseshoe theory bullshit. And I won't mention anybody on Twitter and which journalists pushed this narrative, but there's some pretty prominent progressives, I like to think of them as grifters, who said that, we should align ourselves with, the Richard Spencers of the world and whatnot, because they have the same belief that we do when it comes to the duopoly. We can handle everything after the fact. Marxists were one of the first to come out and go, are you fucking out of your mind? You want to align yourself with people who want to commit genocide, who are racist, who are bigots, who are misogynist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because you share a couple of beliefs. It was fucking nonsense. And when you have these people come out, and I understand completely Cynthia McKinney's position, and I understand the frustration, but to jump out and then align in that manner, that's detrimental to what we're all trying to accomplish here. Horseshoe theory is bullshit. Anybody who prescribes to it is a fucking imbecile. Sorry.
so I kind of know who you're talking about, and I like.
You know exactly who I'm talking about.
I stayed out of all of that shit because I think that over the course of the last couple of years, it's been borne out that no, in fact, these people are not secret Nazis, and that there's an argument to be made for common cause on specific issues. And Andrew Smith, the guy who's co-running Action for Assange, has made this point on a number of different occasions regarding specifically Julian Assange. Where that clashes is when you meet zealots or idealists or people that 100% believe the book is the literal interpretation kind of thing, and you're not going to find common cause with those people regardless of how good your point is, because you as a person are automatically so reprehensibly offensive to them that regardless of how good your point is, it's not going to be heard. And the same is kind of true is really absolutely true, especially with Richard Spencer. But with the Q crew, with the people that are fucking openly walking down the street with Nazi flags or tiki torches or whatever, we're not going to find common cause with them. There are people that gravitate towards both, and they can be pulled in any direction. And whether that's grift or desperation or both, H.A. Goodman comes to mind.
I didn't want to name names.
I'm going to name names because H.A. Goodman's a fucking hack, and I knew he was a fucking hack when he dropped his first goddamn article in goddamn HuffPo. I knew that shit. I called it. I have receipts of it. It fucking goes back to goddamn... And fucking nobody wanted to listen to me on that shit. Nobody. They're like, no, he's on our side. He's a good guy. And fucking... and Jamal Thomas still gives him fucking, props. And I don't understand that shit. I enjoy Jamal's show. He's a great dude. I don't know why he would fucking go out of his way to pat fucking H.A. Goodman on the back, but he does, and I could, fucking that's his gig. But he's a fucking
I don't know
idiot.
if the audience is seeing this, but you're breaking up bad.
I haven't been to the audience, at least according to the audience, because I've got the chat up.
Okay. If it's just me, that's fine. You're just making some great points, and I'm catching half of them, and I'm putting together the rest, and I think they're great points. I want to make sure the audience is getting it.
You could always watch the show after the fact too. I mean, I don't, but
To see if I was right.
somebody's gonna.
No, I just want to
somebody
make sure the
like
audience is getting
no,
what you're saying, because you're making some great points.
I would like to. I would like to think that someday there will be people that go back to old episodes just to see how wrong we are and call us on it if we are or not. But, you know, I don't know.
No, it's going to be great. I fully expect it. Hence why I carefully phrase things, because I want, if I'm going to die on a hill, I'm going to die on a hill 100%. Fuck it.
Well,
You know,
I mean,
I took a position. I'll own it. That's it.
You said you had to cut out around 10, so I'm trying to figure out if there's anything that you wanted specifically to get to or that you had up, because I want you to do that.
No, I kind of want to continue this conversation because you always speak about sleight of hand when it comes to the mainstream media and the duopoly and our government in general. Hey, this is going on, but if you look over in this direction, you'll see something shiny and all interesting and funny looking. Again, I want to touch on this obsession with Russiagate, but people aren't discussing the actual substance of the DNC emails and how this is a usurpation of the will of the electorate. Why aren't we having that conversation 3 years later? We're having a conversation about Robert Mueller and who he's put in jail and who he's talking to. And on July 24th, he's going to go into the House and have to, start answering questions. But we're not having that conversation how one half, and we know the Republican Party is just as fucking guilty, ladies and gentlemen. Don't take this as just a bashing on Democrats. This is a bashing on both of the bloated fascists that run this country. But no one's having the conversation about how Democrats totally took away the will of their electorate when it came to 2016, and they put up the worst candidate in Democratic history. And they've had some doozies, ladies and gentlemen. They've had some real winners that they put up as nominee for president of the United States. So I kind of want to do a little bit further of a deep dive into this conversation, because you bring up not only a great point with the Julian Assange deal, Chelsea Manning, but you also bring up the question of a sleight of hand. And this is further proof that you cannot depend on the mainstream media or your government to give you information, that you have to go out there, unfortunately, and strike it out on your own to figure these things out.
Okay, well, right off the bat, I can tell you that as of today, Chelsea Manning has been fined $19,000 for refusing to perjure herself. That's cruel and unusual punishment. It's punitive, designed to break her financially and make it so she can't afford a legal defense. So that's going on, and you're not going to. Good.
Now, for the audience, I don't think they'll understand this. When you're found in contempt, it's not supposed to be punitive in the sense that it's supposed to do long-lasting damage. It's supposed to compel you to speak about whatever's being asked of you. It should not be punitive. It should compel you to discuss. That's why you see people go to quote unquote jail, and they hang out in a cell for however long that's needed until either the case ends or what have you. To charge her $19,000 and to punish her is vile, it's disgusting, and it flies in the face of law. And how people aren't all over this, I don't understand.
Well, if you acknowledge it, you have to then admit that you, as a member of Mockingbird Media, spent however many years demonizing the character of Chelsea Manning, how you threw around the word traitor and advocated fucking the torture that she did receive. You would have to have a reconciling with yourself on that, and that's never going to happen with any of these motherfucking stenographers. They're going to take orders because that's what they're paid to do. Paul fucking Krugman was on Twitter this morning intentionally misunderstanding the spat between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden and on their healthcare proposals. And so I dropped an Upton Sinclair quote on him, and that's, it's difficult for a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it. And that's Paul Krugman in a fucking tiny little encapsulation. His salary depends on him misunderstanding the issue. That's 95% of media. That's why you get a Nobel Peace Prize and then get to bomb 5 other countries. It's why you get a Nobel Prize in economics like Krugman did and get to completely misrepresent not only how the American federal government works and how that monetary system works, but you get to misrepresent Keynesian economics as a profession because you've made it political. And it's fucking, that's their gig. So that's why they're never going to fucking mention Chelsea unless they have to slander her. That's why when they talked about the charges against Julian Assange, it was these specific charges that relate to the First Amendment and the freedom of the press are absolutely draconian. And Donald Trump is a monster. And Bill Barr is a monster for wanting to damage our sacred fourth fucking estate in this heinous fashion. But Julian Assange is a pig. And that's why they presented it that way. That's why Rachel fucking Maddow only refers to him in the sneering voice as the WikiLeaks guy and not Julian Assange. And she'll say it over and over and over as neuro-linguistic programming to have her audience connect Julian Assange as the face of WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks is the organization that brought down Mueller. And now we've got Robert Mueller, who has been fucking court ordered to no longer peddle that fiction. So it will be interesting when he goes in to testify, because he's going to have to tap dance around the fact that he just spent the better part of 3 years, 2+ years, and however many, millions of dollars, man hours, peddling fiction.
Well, the funny part is I decided while you were discussing to go onto Twitter and then just type in the search Julian Assange. And this is something we talked about in pre-production about how the ex-Ecuadorian president who gave Assange asylum is coming out and supporting the fact that he turned it into a quote unquote, and this is from Marshall Cohen from, I don't know where the hell he's from, but he's some twat. How he turned the embassy into a command post to meddle in the 2016 election. Now, what's hilarious is this narrative that's coming out that Julian Assange is his whole intent was just to screw with the American election. And I find that as a bridge too far. His whole MO since he became WikiLeaks, since he argued for transparency, was to force governments to be transparent to their people, to actually do real journalism. Now, these people are trying to impugn him with the intent that the whole point of this was for him to meddle in the 2016 election and screw Hillary Clinton. It's getting insane. It's getting batshit. And now the Ecuadorian president, for whatever reason, I don't know if he plans on running again. I don't know what the hell he plans on doing, but is changing his story and saying, yeah, I knew the whole time, but, it was one of those things where it was I found out the last minute, and a lot of contradicting accounts. And this narrative that's coming out that his whole point was just to screw with the 2016 election. Not that he's fought for transparency, not fought to bring journalism back into the lexicon, actual journalism, not this trite BS that the mainstream media peddles out. And it's just absolutely insane how many people are latching on to this and being like, oh, he's the Antichrist.
So we got Brooke Hines in the chat. Hey, Brooke, how's it going? Saying the ex-president of Ecuador, as I understand, his most recent statement was trying to protect Assange. I'll go back and rewatch, but the way I took it wasn't quite as Jason puts it. Yeah, I don't know. I only glanced at it. I've been busy as fuck. Um, what I did see was that they keep trotting out that CNN article that was blatantly a piece of fiction that said, "Oh, he was using the embassy as kind of a revolving door for um, spies, journalists, and fucking Donald Trump political operatives and shit like that." Uh, the first release of the article um, even had a fucking cover your ass word, like apparently or something like that in it, and then they edited it down. Um, okay, so CNN spun the statement, and the ex-president debunked it on RT.
Okay, fantastic. Because I have not seen that RT follow up again. I work religiously.
And what I do know is that the current president had 4.6 billion reasons to fucking break his agreement with Julian Assange. And I know that Juan Guaido had like 6 billion reasons to want to participate in a coup that's still going on, by the way. Like, Nicolas Maduro is still the president of Venezuela, but Juan Guaido and the CIA and John Bolton and Elliot Abrams are still trying to fucking overthrow a democratically elected government.
Yeah, that hasn't changed. Just because the mainstream media isn't paying attention to it doesn't mean it's changed. Let's see. Wednesday morning. Yeah, I'm looking at the Intercept right now. Apparently, they did a sit
I was
down
gonna,
on May
I was gonna
16th.
say,
I'm not seeing.
I bet
I'm not
Glenn
seeing this
Greenwald had
clarification.
something to say about that.
Yeah, I'm looking up because I mean, if he clarified and said that it was spun incorrectly, but reading through that article, if they did a spin job, they did a fucking fantastic job because I interpreted his as political cover, as him covering for his decisions, which were the right decisions to offer Assange asylum. You know, I don't question that, but the way it was spun on CNN was that, yeah, I acknowledge everything, and in hindsight, maybe not. That
Yeah,
type of
what
thing.
I guess what he said was that he acknowledged the fact that Ecuador was doing their part to entrap and make sure that Julian Assange got snagged. But CNN decided to take that and say, look, he was admitting he was doing it. And this is just from what I'm getting out of the chat.
But read toward the bottom of it too on that CNN one where he says that Ecuador doesn't believe in meddling in anybody else's elections because he doesn't want anybody meddling in his. So I mean that's for, like I said, that CNN article is a hell of a spin job. I'm looking for clarification just for myself, not to argue against anybody and say that they're wrong. I just need to clarify because what I got from that was absolute bullshit, and I saw it
Yeah,
as a smear job.
well, it was on CNN. I mean, could have been your first clue. Uh, I'm glad we got that cleared up, and I'm glad we got it cleared up in real time on the show because
But we need to put up posts on where these clarifications come. I'm searching right now, and I'm digging through as we
Andrew's in
talk.
the chat. He says he sent it. I don't know if he sent it to you or if he sent it to, oh, he put it on my Twitter.
Beautiful, beautiful. I appreciate that.
And I'll get on that when we're done here. Yeah, I
If I
mean,
had 5 minutes more, if I wasn't working religiously, I probably would have caught that. But yeah.
yeah, no, I fucking openly admit that I have a lot of shit going on. I have shit that I have to do immediately after this, and I have to fucking go to work tonight, and yeah, busy. But I do make time to fucking figure out shit live on the air. That's cool.
No, I'm down for it. It means our audience is on top of things. I love that.
Let's see. Is there anything else that I wanted to get to specifically? Oh, I did kind of want to go through a little bit of what we didn't get to in the Whitney Webb interview yesterday.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it. Oh, and a lot of it has to do with what we're experiencing right now. Again, in terms of both the slow crucifixion of Julian Assange, the new Red Scare that we've been living through. Joe McCarthy was wrapped up in this child sex trafficking for sport and blackmail racket that fucking Meyer Lansky, dude, that's just wild. It is. It's wild to me. But Joseph McCarthy, the House Un-American Activities, the original Red Scare, the man who the phrase McCarthyism was coined for, which is what
from Wisconsin.
Yeah, from the great state of Wisconsin, Badger. And by the way, I have friends and family in Wisconsin, and none of them are like Joseph McCarthy. In fact, one of the more leftist badasses that I know is currently in Wisconsin. It's Stephanie. She's on Twitter. Is Steph is tired of your bullshit? Yeah. Good friend of mine from the Daily Kos days when fucking I had a Daily Kos account. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Hey, man, it led me to getting blacklisted from the nation. It fucking, I met some good people. I met some absolute idiots. I know exactly who not to trust and why. It was a learning experience. We'll say that. But Joe McCarthy was apparently notorious for being a drunken groper of the little girls, and how far that went, and to the extent of how far the groping went. Hoover apparently had a file on him like that. Joe McCarthy's one of his aides on the House Un-American Activities was Roy Cohn. So Roy Cohn is learning at the feet of this drunken potential pedophile fucking serial groper, and the whole time they're trying to demonize communism, demonize socialism, demonize leftism. This is where we saw integration as being communist. This is where we saw civil rights as being communist. They tried to pin communist on Martin Luther King Jr. They tried to pin communist on Malcolm X. They tried to pin
on everybody.
Yeah, it's why the drug war targeted hippies and African Americans, and why specific drugs were targeted for specific communities. All of this not only to protect a serial pedophile racket, but to ensure a divided, broken, and broke country that they could easily rule, not govern, but rule. And that's where we're at right now with the silencing of Julian Assange, the silencing of Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, who apparently still gets to communicate by video link, whereas no one else does, which is weird to me. Like, Edward Snowden has merch, and like products. I don't know. I'm not saying one thing or another either way. I mean, John Kiriakos still has a job, and a life. I'm not saying John's compromised. This shit's just wild to me. It's wild to me that fucking Bill Barr is now Attorney General, and his dad was responsible for getting Jeffrey Epstein a job at Dalton. Like, yeah. Or maybe he had left Dalton before Epstein started teaching, but there's corroborating evidence that he was the one that was still running Dalton when Epstein went through the hiring process. I don't know if you got any of that.
I got most of it. It's just all batshit to me. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, there are so many better people like yourself, like Whitney, that are involved in the Epstein thing. That's not my bag. My bag is more toward, as you know, foreign policy, law, things like that. So for me, I haven't done a deep dive into the Epstein situation. I understand that the Epstein tentacles go everywhere, that it affects everything. And these, like, you're telling me these things, and I'm like, holy shit. Because I really haven't researched into it. My hyper focus again is on law, policy, and foreign affairs. Those are my three things that I wake up in the morning, I take a look at. I try to comb through, try to figure out what I want to talk about during the day, and go from there. This is just it's batshit. It's absolute batshit. But the worst part is to me, it doesn't seem inconceivable. It seems like, oh yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds like this could potentially happen, and yeah,
Well,
I'm not shocked.
the evidence and the facts bear out that it did happen. It is happening. It's Chris Walker in the chat is pointing out that it's really easy for Whitney Webb to sit back, knowing that she lives in Chile, and to say don't pay your taxes. And I understand that. I do. I love it. Because it's funny as fuck to me. Like, I know she's serious, but I know that orchestrating something like that would be about as improbable as getting everybody up off of their couch to go surround the halls of power and demand that we have a government that works for us. So, I mean, yeah, I get it, Chris. I do. You can totally appear smug when you're fucking sitting in the
skin in the game.
And for the one person complaining about the sound on that show, man, she was on her phone. Her Wi-Fi crashed 5 minutes before we were supposed to go on the air. She's like, I'm sorry, this never happens. I'm like, why would this happen today of all days when we've been promoting this interview about your fucking groundbreaking deep dive into why there is someone like a Jeffrey Epstein and why he was capable of operating? Why would your Wi-Fi go out? I can't imagine. Yeah, every time she moved, it would fuck with her phone mic. And I don't know if you saw the interview. People watching right now probably did. Whitney Webb is an animated individual, and she got a lot to say, man. And she put in work on this. So I would be animated about it too. I mean, fuck, look at me, dude. I bounce around all the time. It's just
I'm animated on the inside. For me, like, my level of excitement is just trying to contain myself from saying something highly offensive to people, just for being the ignorant masses that they are. I'm trying to constantly balance my anger and rage toward the electorate with that of toward this government. So I constantly have to keep myself on chill mode. Otherwise, I probably, run off about 95% of the audience that we're seeking to try to expand their horizons with. So yeah, no, see people animated like yourself or Whitney or others, that's fantastic. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the Wi-Fi connection thing is dubious, especially if it hasn't happened before and you put out advertisements leading up to. I mean, you can
not
advertise however
advertisements,
you need
but we
to.
announced it on our social media, and a lot of people shared that shit. So thank you for doing that. If you were one of those people, I appreciate the fuck out of you. I really want you to know that. Solid. But yeah, no, it's not the first time that I've had a guest with a bad connection.
Right.
It's not the first time that there's been sound interference during a show. What's new about it is that we're now doing live streams from the studio, and we haven't done that in the past. But we are a couple of miles away from a Lockheed, and that Lockheed makes experimental drone technology. And the Cynthia McKinney interview is a fucking testimony to that. That's why I haven't taken it down, because it's so fucking hard to watch. This is what happens when you try to have a real conversation about some real shit with somebody who's actually seen some real shit, you know? Yeah, dude, I'm not the only show that gets fucked with. You hear Graham talking all the time. Content creators in general talking all the time. We had a fuck ton of subscribers taken away from us. Every time Nico House does a video, it's instantly demonetized. Like there's a concerted effort to stifle, frustrate, silence, and otherwise obfuscate individuals who create content that speak outside of the narrative.
Right. I found on people of the 99% on Facebook. I mean, my joke was that I've got 2 weeks to talk because I want to spend the other half of the month in Facebook jail. I think for the 3.5 years that people of the 99% has existed, I think we spent 1.5 to 20 months being censored by Facebook, and then them coming back and saying, "Oh yeah, you didn't violate the guidelines. Have fun." And it's like, I put the appeal in the day that you slammed this down on me, and then conveniently after the 2 weeks that you silence me, all of a sudden you're telling me I've done nothing wrong. So I get that. Believe me, I get that.
They gave Unity for Jay their Twitter account back.
Good.
And the only reason that happened is because people like Roger Waters were making videos like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Really? What did they do? Tell us what they did. Oh, you can't? Give them their shit back, and it's ultimately what I think is that Twitter and their board and the people that influence their board decided that it was better for surveillance if they gave Unity for Jay their account back than if they made them go to another platform that they had to then go to the trouble of infiltrating. And this is what I would suggest for everyone. Go get a Proton account, encrypted email. Encourage everyone that you email to have an encrypted account as well. Get Signal for your phones, encrypted text messages, and make them pull resources away to fucking look at you, send fucking scheduling emails, cat pictures, fucking silly memes, all that shit, grocery lists. That's decentralized activism.
Right. I totally agree. You guys got me for another minute. So I want to thank the audience, first off, for pointing me in the direction. I'm still looking at it, and I'm looking at an alleged interview that he did with The Intercept, the ex-Ecuadorian president. And it's still, I can't deep dive while we're doing this live, but, it's kind of some conflicting things in that. But I'm going to take a look at that post that the individual put up, or the link. I appreciate that. And that's what's beautiful about this audience. They're on top of their game. They're, covering where we can't. I think we need more people like that. So it's appreciated.
Well, thanks, Jay. And fucking thanks for hanging out this morning. And yeah, hopefully we can
tomorrow morning for sure.
Hopefully we can make this a regular thing, at least until my schedule gets fucking batshit crazy again. I will stick around for chat questions for about 5 minutes. But yeah, Jason Carney, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, man. You be safe out there, and we will see you soon.
All right. You guys have a good one.
All right, take care, buddy. I'm gonna go through the chat here for a minute, and Dingo, what's up? Andrew, you fucking rock. Farkas, good morning. I'm looking forward to hearing Fault Line's interview. Someone in one of my threads was like, there's 27% that a Zionist rabbi will be on either before or after Whitney Webb. And I would like to double check that to see if that bore out or not. I think that would be interesting. There used to be some saintly types in New England that refused to pay their tax that was for war. They stayed out of jail but couldn't own houses or cars or anything attachable. That's interesting. Were they Mainers? They sound like they're from Maine. um, the whole idea of not paying taxes, again, it's fucking fascinating. It would be a phenomenal act of disobedience that I do not see happening anytime soon. And I guarantee that that's because I'm cynical about the idea. I do think it's more realistic to organize protests that are genuine protests and not parades. But we'll see. I don't know. I may be back with another video or two a little bit later in the afternoon. What is the quickest way to get through to a political novice, blue no matter who person? Is there even a chance? You know, maybe Thomas Frank. Maybe. Thomas Frank wrote "What's the Matter with Kansas," and it's been a blue no matter who Bible. If they're casually blue no matter who or novice blue no matter who, they may know that book and not know that he wrote "Listen Liberal." They may not know that MSNBC went on a smear campaign over him writing "Listen Liberal." And I would, and if they haven't read "What's the Matter with Kansas," I would give them that book, and then I would give them "Listen Liberal" when they're done with that book, and maybe show some of the clips of Thomas Frank on Tom Hartman, not on Jimmy Dore, because maybe you can't really like get some. I still can't get people who swear to God they're fucking basically anarcho-communist to watch Jimmy Dore's show because he does it in his garage. They're like, it's not a legitimate broadcast. Brr, brr. You know, it's fucking retarded. Yeah, that I'd suggest that. Tom Hartman to me is still a blue no matter who guy. He's like your favorite history teacher that you find out later in life. Like kept full Nazi dress uniforms in his closet and shit. Like I'm not calling Tom Hartman a Nazi. I'm calling him a disappointment. Is what I'm saying. I think that God, I hate to fucking say it. I really do, but I think you can kind of ease people into a more open mindset by showing them like some of Kyle Kulinski's more ranty clips. Kyle presents, credible, professional shit like that. I don't personally agree with his in-game philosophy, and I don't personally agree with him that the Democratic Party can be transformed from the inside. And I'm on record multiple times calling Kyle Kulinski Tom Hartman's Padawan because he is. But I think he's one of those people that if you can show somebody who's a political novice who just thinks the Democrats are good guys, I think if you can get them to read Thomas Frank, to sort of see the more left-leaning opinions of people like Kulinski or to a degree Tom Hartman, then you can kind of pull them along a little bit more. Like it'll be easier to criticize both parties. And when you can bring yourself to criticize both parties, you can pull back a little bit. And that's when you can really start to organize within your community. You can start to do things that are more non-governmental associated. You can seek intrapersonal advances, I guess, is kind of what I want to say there. And you can almost find a rabbit hole for anyone who's just casually into politics to send them down and just explode their mind. And then when they want to run away from that, they still have to reconcile with the fact that both parties are completely corrupted, owned by the same people, acting as fucking PR firms for the oligarchs that in reality rule the country. There's some bells you can't unring. You know, Brooke and I were having that conversation on the show the other day. And if I recall correctly, and Brooke, if you're still here and I'm wrong, let me know. But it was in regard to Seth Rich. Like, there's certain facts that you can't not look at anymore once you've looked at them, and once you process them, you have to make a conscious choice as to whether or not you're going to accept them or you're going to reject them outright and loudly. And that's you know, should you choose to accept it as a fact, then you have to then open yourself up to a completely different set of facts than the ones that you have been given. And a lot of people aren't ready to make that leap. A lot of people would rather be comfortable in their head, even though they're not comfortable in their surroundings, even though they know that their job pays shit, that milk costs this much, that a beer costs that much, that a pack of smokes costs that much, let alone fucking your utility bill. They would rather be comfortable in their head and believe that there are good Democrats out there that are working to stop this problem, even though the reality of the situation is that Ro fucking Khanna is supporting a fucking anti-BDS bill in the House right now, along with other progressive caucus members. I think that's going to be the next, like the next big soul crushing experience for Team Bernie Sanders, is the absolute outing of Ro Khanna as a fucking Warren template graduating fake progressive. And that's probably what my next video will be about when I get around to it. Until then, I'm Steve Poikonen. This has been Slow News Day. Good luck to us all.